All right. Woe to those who call good evil and evil good. I wonder if we might point out any of our candidates who might be, well, let's just see. What sort of candidates should believers support? Again, this is the second part of this section, this module. And last week we began our understanding, our discussion. And I wanted to make clear that our hope is, of course, in the gospel of Messiah, not in this world's political parties or ideologies. Our hope is certainly not in a specific political party. However, our God-given responsibility as American citizens is to diligently analyze and identify platforms and positions. Now, I have an asterisk there because I want you to understand I'm speaking of platforms and positions, not candidates, that best reflect biblical truth, and to vote for those candidates. If you're looking for a candidate who best reflects biblical truth, keep looking. You won't find him. At best, you will find imperfect humanity. But nonetheless, the platforms and positions that they represent are helpful. And we must vote for those candidates that best reflect the biblical truth in their positions and platforms, and who will best act to preserve the morality of our culture and protect our God-given liberties. We led off with Scripture last week and the week before. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And in our nation, our government, which is of the people, by the people, and for the people by design, we are not like other nations. Our republic is not like every other nation that has ever existed. We, the people, are the ones who are responsible. And that means myself and you. Whether you like it or not, you can hide your head like an ostrich in the sand and say, I'm above politics, I'm heavenly minded, but don't be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good, particularly when the Lord calls you to a responsibility, and that is to honor the government that God has subjected you to. And our government is a republic. That means that we are a representative, constitutional republic. That means that we are all involved. That's why we're spending this time on this. Well, we want a candidate. What kind of candidate do we want? This is what we did last week. We'll just review. Pro-information, not pro-censorship. So I want someone who's going to stand up to the mass media, to CNN, to the New York Times, to the alphabet networks, to social media, and say, who elected you, you petty tyrants? Censoring important information, acting like a wing of one party, the media wing of one party, playing against the other, censoring, literally censoring, essential to know information as we make our election now season, not election day, decisions. Now, speaking 2 weeks after the event, the New York Post, the oldest paper in America, is still unable to use its Twitter account. It's pathetic. It's absurd. And something must be done. I want a candidate. I want a party. I want those in office to protect that freedom of information. I do not want Pravda. If I wanted Pravda, I would have moved to the Soviet Union back in the 80s. That's a direction people aren't going. They're going this way, right? They're fleeing socialism. They're fleeing the dictatorship of communism, the oppression of it. I want a candidate who is pro-free speech, speaking of which, we live in a society that is increasingly woke, and cancel culture is becoming stronger by the week. Will we turn around a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and still have the freedom to speak the truth in love, of course, but to speak the truth Or will legislation like the Equality Act, the law, become the law of the land, where the pronouns that I use or don't use can land me a fine or even jail time? I want a party who will protect my free speech. I want a candidate who is solidly pro-Israel. I remember the previous candidate, or the previous president, and his vice president, who sent $1.5 billion of cash to Iran, Israel's implacable enemy. I like what our president has done. He made his promises, and he kept his promises. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He made peace between Israel and 3 Arab nations. Can't be done. He did it. And an extraordinary thing happened this week. I don't know if you heard about it. This is my old neighborhood in Brooklyn. There is a caravan of Jews for Trump. I cannot believe it. But the Jewish people get it. They understand which candidate is pro-Israel and which one is not. And of course, we spoke of the pro-life issue. A candidate who is pro-life. We made the case, and you can go back and look at last week's message if you would like to see the details, that President Trump is by far, there's not even a contest. He is the most pro-life president ever. More than Reagan, more than George Bush, more than George W. Bush, the most pro-life president ever. Vice President Biden would be the most pro-abortion president ever. Don't take my word for it. Look at their party platform. Listen to the words that he says. And God forbid Harris ever gets in. She would be even worse on the issue of life. So if we want to have a nation that allows abortions all the way up till birth or beyond, we know who to vote for. If we want to keep that from happening, we know who to vote for. Who will stand up for the unborn, stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves, stand up for life. Here's an update since last week. There's a Geneva Consensus Declaration. I don't know if you heard it on the news. I didn't hear it on the news, reported on the news. I had to search for this. Update, as of October 22nd, the Trump administration, in the midst of this crazy season of campaigning, 3 campaigns a day, he's doing whatever he's doing, these rallies, Trump led a 32-nation signing ceremony of a declaration that affirms there is no international right to abortion. So, yes, I know, right? He has made promises, and he has kept his promises. There are some of us who doubted how strong he was on the issue of life. There is no doubt anymore. In our nation or internationally, the world knows where this man stands when it comes to the issue of life. We want a candidate who is pro-law enforcement, not one who allows the streets of our cities to run with blood and burn with fire and anarchy to reign. We want a candidate who will back our men in blue, not stand by and say, oh, let's defund the police. And let's be clear that when they say defund the police, although they said, well, that's not really what, yes, they're talking about taking money away and abolishing the police department. That is what they have said. I take them at their word. We don't want every policeman to have to be Wyatt Earp, a cowboy, and shoot him in the leg, some kind of crazy goal that's not realistic. So in summary, where we were, pro-information candidate. If you hate censorship, the Democratic Party is not for you. Pro-free speech, if you believe in the First Amendment, the Democrat Party, not for you. Pro-Israel, if you love Israel, and we showed the video last week, the Democrat Party is not for you, where they reject Jerusalem. They needed 2/3 majority, couldn't get it. pro-life. If you value the unborn, the Democrat Party is clearly not for you. And finally, if you value law and order, the Democrat Party is not for you. Let's